It's 4 o'clock. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a few disclaimers so that you fully know where you are and you make an active choice about whether you're going to stay. Okay? So you've probably already thought of this, but just in case maybe you're in a different time zone and you're not clear, but this is the session that stands between you and happy hour or nap or whatever else you have planned for the evening. So we have intentionally designed an extremely interactive session, and there will be treats. If that is not what you're up for right now, I'm just giving you fair warning that that is what we're doing. So you are going to be teamed with the people at your table, and we're going to be getting friendly and sharing ideas. So I just want to give you fair warning that that is what you are in for. So while you decide, we'll introduce ourselves. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Tommy Greco. I'm Director of Business Development and Strategy at the Nebraska Early Childhood Collaborative.
And I am Laura Weeldreyer. I am the Executive Director of the Maryland Family Network, which is a statewide nonprofit that works in many aspects of early childhood in the state of Maryland. And our topic today is marketing. But I think when Tommy and I put our heads together, our initial thought was like, we are new in this work and we don't have all the answers and we don't want to stand in front of you and pretend that we do. What we can share with you, and we'll share with you for just a few minutes at the top here, is a little bit of why we're standing in front of you today and why they thought we would be good to talk to you about marketing efforts. But the truth is, everybody in this room is probably as expert as us. You're all already engaged. You've all already bought into this idea of shared services, and that's why you're sitting here today. So instead of us filling your head with our potentially limited knowledge, instead we're going to unlock the collective genius in this room by getting everybody helping to answer some essential questions around marketing shared services to childcare providers. And what I was supposed to say and forgot, because Tommy didn't remind me, was for anybody who is watching the live stream, this is probably going to be a dissatisfying session to watch because you're not sitting at a table with a team and you can't catch any candy and it might be chaotic. And we were fine with that, but we did not consider what the virtual experience would be. So apologies in advance if it's not fun to watch virtually.
They can start with happy hour.
They said they can laugh.
That's right. They can start their happy hour early and we won't tell anyone.
Someone shared that they can laugh with you.
Okay, that's true. And we have Joanna from OpEx who's monitoring the chat for us so kindly. Okay, do you want to just talk a few minutes about your work in Nebraska?
Yeah, so at NECC, we are a statewide nonprofit serving childcare providers kind of all across the board. So we started out in 2014, specifically with EHS-CCP. So pretty limited, not a lot of marketing and networking going on there. In about 2018, 2019, we started kind of evolving that work and expanding and doing some outreach specifically with professional development opportunities. That evolved into a partnership with All Our Kin, where we started doing some business mentoring, coaching, some building of capacity across the state through some licensing supports, which evolved into a Wonder School partnership. And so now here today, we've got almost 100 childcare providers, a part of our family childcare network. We have 10, a part of a small center pilot that we're doing in partnership with Shine Early Learning. And so all along the way, I got to be a big part of those different projects, specifically with kind of the project launch. But a big, huge part of that, obviously, is generating interest and getting people, to raise their hand and say, sure, I'll give this idea a try. And so I think that's why I'm here to chat with you all and give an opportunity to just share the things that did work for me, and more importantly, a long list of things that absolutely did not work. And so excited to get to chat with you all and hear your ideas, and be happy to tell you, no, that's a horrible idea. Don't try that.
For sure, that's definitely our plan. So let me just say a few words about Maryland Family Network. We are a statewide nonprofit. We run several networks. We're the largest early Head Start grantee. We run a network around the state of 2-generation family support centers, and we run the R&R network for Maryland. We also do quite a bit of policy advocacy. So it's a nice blend of direct service and informed policy, or that's the way I like to think about it, is that direct service is what gives us our street cred on the advocacy side. I became the executive director just 2.5 years ago after many years in K-12 education. So it has been a very interesting moment as the state expands pre-K to 3- and 4-year-olds. And there's a lot of pressure for early childhood and K-12 to really get shoulder to shoulder. And of course, with a background of education, the first thing that occurred to me is like, nobody's getting the benefit of being a system in early childhood. So all the things I experienced in central office of bulk purchasing and negotiating contracts and buying power and cheaper benefits and all of those things, when you have thousands and thousands of employees and hundreds of schools, were missing from the early childhood landscape. So about 18 months ago, as the pandemic was in full swing, we were invited to apply for a grant, and I was like, well, let's just write it for shared services. I was less than a year in the job. I was very naive about what exactly that would mean. And sometimes that's a good thing, right? Like sometimes it's better not to know why it's going to be so hard. And we got funded and stood up in pretty short order a program called Maryland Child Care Boost. We are just about at the end of our first cohort of 60 family child care providers participating in this from 3 counties in Maryland. MFN is funding it, but we're really running it through the CCRCs. So we have a business coach in each of the CCRCs. We have one person at MFN who's presenting tomorrow, who is running it, sort of statewide and trying to figure it out. I think to Tommy's earlier comments, when we kicked it off, we just wanted somebody to sign up. It's like we could throw a party and nobody comes. Like, what was I going to tell those funders who gave me all that money about thinking that there's dire need in the childcare community? So I have probably, to your point, a longer list of things I've learned that we should have done differently and probably lessons in the affirmative. But we are treating it as a pilot and thinking very much from an R&D perspective as we think about launching a second cohort next fall. That's one piece, but also with ARPA money flooding in. Now Boost needs to be seen as sort of a piece of the landscape of programs and supports for providers, which is just not, we thought it was kind of a standalone thing 18 months ago. So a lot has changed for good and for bad in the last 1.5 years. And so marketing is something we'll think about much more carefully this time around. Okay, so the structure of today's session is in the spirit of we are not experts. What we did brainstorm was, what do we think are like the essential questions that you need to be able to answer when you are marketing some version of a shared services pilot or project or initiative. So knowing that those pilots and projects might take different shapes and sizes, there's no one size fits all here. What we really wanted to focus on is, what would you need to be prepared to communicate to whom and how? So our plan is to have you work in your teams, which are these tables. So if you're sitting along the wall, and you were hoping to kind of fade into the woodwork, you might want to move and sit at a table, or the people who are sitting in chairs, you could form your own team, go rogue, and add another team to the scoreboard here. But what's going to happen is we're going to put a question up on the PowerPoint slides. We are going to give you 60 seconds on the clock. We'll see how this works. 60 seconds might be way too long, might be way too short. I don't know. And then when we call time, the first 3 teams to raise their hand and share their answer will get some chocolate. Questions? Yes, sir.
Don't have any drinks in there, do you?
I'm afraid we do not, but see me after 5.
Right.
All right, any other questions before we start? All right, let's give them a round of applause. Good sports. They moved. People hate to move once a session starts. So thank you. We appreciate it.
All right. Without further ado. So when you're thinking about your project or your pilot, think about what is the best or most effective way to market to child care providers. Now, bear in mind, this is a very broad question. We're looking
Starting
for
broad.
any answers. So go
Okay.
ahead and have conversations
You have
amongst your
60
teams.
seconds on the clock.
Kind of are able to relate to what they're doing is I was able to sell more of like focusing on the benefits. But yeah, exactly what's in it for you. Because they're focusing on the challenge itself, you know, that it's like, here's the benefits, here's the, focus on it. Once you read it, you captivate their attention at that point there. You know, it's like, oh, okay, I want to know more about it. And right now, they just want to hear what's your work. Give me
I will.
Five, four, three, two, one. Raise your hand if you want to volunteer your table's answers. 1, 2, 3. Okay,
Perfect.
go.
I waited too long to watch the room.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we said that it would be phone calls, texting, email, and really using trusted messengers.
Okay, everybody heard that? Okay, okay, great. So the next team that goes, only say if you have different answers. All right, I'm trying to incentivize participation.
Yeah, the reason we clean up it in a different way, we said it has to, the message has to be,
That's true.
it will save you time, it's not putting more on your plate, it's free. What we're offering is free, and what else? You make more money. Oh, you make more money, there'll be more money in your pocket.
Great, I love it.
Thank you.
All right, who was the turn of it? Was it you? Do you remember that?
I think we are.
Okay, all right.
Oh, good Lord. So we went, I don't know, what's the face to face, direct communication. Come on, what was the term? Yeah, during that, face to face.
All right, so there were, it was like, the what are you marketing, what's the message, what's the benefits, and then how, right? And that's one of the big challenges is like, what's the best way you're gonna reach them? And if there's one thing I think we heard here is that you're not gonna be able to rely on any one way. You're gonna have to have lots of ways. Is there any other ideas somebody was dying to say that didn't get mentioned?
Some online ones.
Oh yeah, what is it?
So word of mouth is one that wasn't shared. And then financial incentives and access to resources. So speaking their language.
Very good. Good, the language came up. Yep. Because that was a big learning for us. Are you doing things in multiple languages?
Right, right. Definitely making sure that like, if you know, thinking from a provider's perspective, if you're making them work to understand what you're delivering, then you've already kind of defeated the purpose. You got to make sure that you're setting the stage, setting the table for them to participate fully, no matter what, you know, service delivery you're offering, making sure. And two, I guess kind of before that as well, thinking, who am I targeting with this? You know, thinking about, is it the childcare provider that is in a metropolitan area, an urban area, family childcare centers, primarily Spanish speaking providers, any other, you know, across an entire spectrum of different childcare providers. The who is a really great place to start.
Yeah. Well, so we did not think that through on the front end, and we ended up with about 25% of our participants are native Spanish speakers. So An unplanned line in the budget, which had to get dealt with right away, was simultaneous interpretation and translation of all the materials, which adds time. And when you're kind of building the plane while you're flying it, it took us a little while to get that down pat. So just one of those things that we were not prepared for who was going to apply for the project and hadn't totally thought the who through. Okay, so you got the gist of what we're doing now. Okay, you want to take the next question?
Perfect.
All time.
All right, next up, what are the biggest challenges or obstacles to marketing to childcare providers? And then to add on top of it, what's your best recommendation to overcome that or those obstacles?
All right, 60 seconds on the clock, go.
So it takes some days before. So I'm kind of working with what I was talking about. I started text kind of what is the alternate number that they have. Massive text because those are and not that it's there's a notification coming out. So you should check it today. A lot faster than the reading. Exactly.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3 volunteers?
Yes.
1, 2, third table? Third table? Okay,
No, but we don't want more chocolate.
okay.
So our top two, technology and time. Their technology is, and then their time, just they don't have the time.
So did you have recommendations about how to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so for sure, the time, meeting them where they are, when they want to be adjusting our schedules and our work for them, big, and then technology, so we're not trash, showing them the technology, showing it how the benefits for them. Competition, yeah, all the softwares and all of the organizations doing the work, so showing them how they can do it in one.
Okay, thank you. Nice job.
It was basically what we just talked about. For us, the biggest challenge is a single way to get everything the child provider interested. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And the solution, one of the part of the solution is you've got to have a multi-channel communications plan to reach every provider interested.
Does anybody have a sense of what has really worked well for them? Like if you said my top communication channel?
Facebook.
The message gets muddled as it goes through the Facebook channel. Like, I don't know if you're on our Maryland childcare channel, but man, they take one thing you tell them and it's like, it goes in 17 different directions. It's the worst game of telephone.
Okay, well, that's an important consideration, is like how much you put on Facebook then, right? So maybe it's just a teaser directing them somewhere else or inviting them to an information session or not expecting them to carry all of the water.
We got a lot of good webinar. We did webinars like 3 times a week when we were trying to get people into our pre-K program. And that worked really well because they got it right from the source.
Yeah, we also did information sessions in English and Spanish.
Another really great channel that we've used that was surprising for me was direct mail. If anyone else has tried, experimented with that at all, it has been tremendous, pretty affordable, pretty practical to reach, and where Me personally, I hate getting ads and stuff like that in the mail every Tuesday. It seems childcare providers really love it and they feel like they're getting kind of like a little personal message from your organization. That's the feedback we've got.
That's what I started to say. If you
Yeah.
don't put a handwritten note in it, they will put it on the refrigerator and
totally.
they will look at it every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great advice. Okay. Anything else anybody's dying? Oh, right, sorry. It was the already candied table. That's why I forgot.
Ours was kind of general, but that in order for providers to kind of buy what we're selling, there is to be a high degree of trust. And I think to overcome that, you just really have to put in the time and the energy to get to know people at an individual level.
Totally.
And I will just say that is why, I mean, I think people know Maryland Family Network, but we ran it through the CCRCs because obviously that's really who providers know. And if they've ever heard of us, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, or maybe they can't quite place where they've heard of us. So we thought it's better for anything of this nature to be associated with their local R&R. Yeah.
Go back to the direct mail question.
Sure.
What kind of things are you sending?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So postcards is just the biggest, simplest one for us. And we've got a really great like printing partner locally that we work with where we do the design in-house ourselves, and then we send it off to them. We have a nonprofit discount on postage. We can use them to purchase mailing lists. So if you want to do like blanket coverage of an area, some information building, like that's a good way to go. Or, and this is getting a little bit ahead, if you can develop a partnership with like DHHS or some other organization that might be able to be willing to share some information, some addresses, things like that, that is going to be a gold mine for you. Does that help answer?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we end up,
Did you have more you want to say?
I was just kind of thinking like, is it just an intro and trying to recruit folks? And then, or is there something that
Okay.
you're direct mailing after they're already part of it and you're just sending, weekly newsletters or weekly information in the mail? I wasn't sure.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, so ours is mostly like a marketing approach, not necessarily like a newsletter thing. I would worry that would like skyrocket our print and mailing budget. But generally it's like we did a lot of mail at the very beginning, just to put our name out there, build some brand recognition, get whatever the project or pilot is in people's minds, pair it with lots of other channels, social media, stuff like that, just to kind of keep driving it home, and then spacing it out over time. And kind of, if it's an event that you're leading up to, you're hosting a happy hour, an information session, something like that, using those to kind of get that information in front of people has been really helpful for us.
And I'm just thinking, we built a website, MarylandChildcareBoost.org, I guess, maybe it's .com. Anyway, the point is that if we were going to do a direct mail, it would have been driving people to that because we were trying to keep all the information in one spot. So you applied online. We recorded the information sessions and put the recordings on that website. Like we tried to just have that be the one source of truth for the project. So yeah, I'm thinking, oh yeah, we could drive people there with mailings. Yep.
Did you have something you want to?
yeah, we use our direct mailing as like a recruitment strategy. So just like inviting or introducing them to the field, offer a promo. We do like a 6-month thing for newly licensed providers once a month, like the first week. And then we cold call right after. So I use it as an excuse. Hey, did you get this direct mailer? This is who we are. This is what it is. So it kind of is a chain effect for that. Yeah, it's worked.
That's cool.
That's very cool. And how do you know who the new providers are?
Yeah.
Getting a list from Office of
It's like a
Child Care
state-based list
or the
with address,
licensing?
contact, phone number. Yep. So it's
Okay.
always there. We just kind of divide it up and kind of choose what we want to do. Yeah.
Great approach. Are you raising your hand too?
Well, I had something to go on that too, and then also a question, but for mailings for us, and this was during the CARES Act recovery, we utilize it just to share resources, but just kind of as brand building. So we were sharing something that was concrete and didn't have a specific ask, more just to get information on our brand. Totally. And had a good response to that. And then also a question, I don't know if this will come up later, but if anybody has utilized text messaging, because we haven't, but we're thinking about doing that.
We've just started to dip a toe into it.
As have we.
We have Salesforce that we use, and so on top of it, we have a texting platform. And it's been feedback that we've had for a while now. Just the implementation of it is not quite so simple. So before this, though, our staff was using their personal phones to text and interact, just because it is one of the easiest ways to get in front of providers. There, especially family childcare, you got to catch them in passing, and on a cell phone is going to be the easiest way.
Yeah. So like Tommy, we have Salesforce and we have a texting platform that sits on top of it. We just have started using it, but our team has looked at like the difference between when we do big broadcast emails and like how many people unsubscribe and how many people open it or how many people click on the link. And the numbers are much better than what we get from email. So lots of emails go unopened.
Yeah.
Guilty. Yeah. Okay. Next question. Only a couple of tables left. I'm looking at you. We don't have any candy and we're on to the second bag. So
Did
you
we
gotta get in the
miss
game.
anything from the chat on that?
I think you guys, mostly everyone shared,
Cool.
the same feedback.
Any more worries about sound?
Nope.
Okay.
Next one is, what is the most important thing for a provider to hear about your initiative or your organization for them to convert or for them to decide yes or no, this is a fit for me?
All right, 60 seconds on the clock, go.
Meeting the needs. For like 2 weeks, so I'm gonna be.
There's probably 30.
Probably, yes. Yeah. You're right, yeah, let's do it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Volunteers?
Well, we're like kind of voluntold.
Yes, you are voluntold. Okay, there, a third. Yes. All right, we'll start up here.
It kind of goes back to what we were discussing on kind of, sharing the benefits of it. It saves time, money. It optimizes your operations. And the other things that we talked about is
They don't have to be technologically savvy.
yeah, meeting them where they're at, and being able to move them from sustainability to a thriving business.
Okay, fantastic. Let me bring you the mic.
The other part would be understanding what a family child care provider needs and also being vulnerable and transparent and sharing what's in it for you. Because there's a little bit of paranoia with the FCC. I'm a family child care provider myself, but having an influencer liaison between your services and also the family child care community, because word of mouth is everything. So if there's one person that says, you don't have to be afraid of this service, or I've tried it, it worked out great, and I recommend them. So that's what you need. Basically, it's just, having that mutual transparency, vulnerability there. So
We've definitely got a long list of who we call our influencers too, that kind of leverage those relationships and that trust that already exists.
I didn't have a third.
Wow.
Yeah. Does anybody want to add things that they haven't heard? Yeah.
This might have been mentioned already, but we were thinking, announcing the time commitment because they're already so busy, running their business, running their personal lives, and to think, okay, maybe there's a new type of software. Okay, how long is it gonna take me to actually use it or even learn it? There's a whole learning curve with that. That's just any other type of shared service you're trying to provide.
Yeah, so I would say this is a hard learning for us in Maryland is that we were so excited to get people enrolled that we didn't like spell out what would be expected of them. Because of course, probably secretly we just didn't want to scare anybody away by saying anything would be expected of them, but that is also silly. So for the next cohort, we've already decided that we will have the calendar of meetings, of whatever the trainings will be, and then we'll also have a timeline. If a piece of it is technology, of like when there will be milestones, that you'll need to have a website done by this date, or you'll need to have online enrollment by this date. I'm completely making this up, but hypothetically. And then back to I think it was the first table, obviously we'll want to message that, but there's going to be a lot of support for you. You don't have to know how to do this now. But I do think clarity, because they need to know what they're getting into. And if those expectations don't match what they think they need, then maybe they really need a touch point with, the ambassador, somebody who's a trusted, they might not see themselves in that description right away. And that's okay. As we said, not every channel will reach every provider. But yes, I think that's a big piece. And then I think there are also some brass tacks, like, am I going to get continuing ed credits for this? Can it fulfill any of the things I need to do for credentialing? Like other ways that it aligns with systems or processes they might already be familiar with.
Well, that's conceptually, that's the value proposition.
Right.
And you have to spell that value out because their time is a cost. Their aggravation is a cost.
Yes.
So I'm willing to put in the work if you have already sold me on the value up front.
And knowing that can help you prepare on the front end for in our experience, when we're making a really big ask, a lot of time, never have we had to ask for money, but always a lot of time and knowing the value of that. Sometimes then you got to turn and you got to start greasing the wheels. You got to say, okay, here's the incentives that we're going to offer to counter and to, express appreciation, whether that's inspired by the work we did with all our kin, saying at every business training, you're going to have a meal waiting for you. You're going to get paid, clock your time to attend this training. Things like that go light years with the child care providers, just making sure that you're transparent and helping them understand that you hear that. Yeah, exactly.
So we didn't do exactly that, but on a similar note, we wanted to make sure we were being very clear that this is not just for you, but of you, and that providers would actually be helping to shape. We were saying we're starting this pilot. It's never been done before. You're going to have a role in designing it for your own cohort, but for future cohorts. So we've pulled, at this point in the cohort, we actually have formalized an advisory board of providers who are kind of like super engaged early adopters within the cohort. But along the way, we never had any kind of a time where we did not leave space to say, what do you want to talk about? And what things do people have to share? So that time has been used for people to share unplanned, like a spur of the moment, but hey, I did my first virtual tour and enrolled 3 new kids. And that, by the way, is so much more effective than me or a consultant or somebody standing up and saying, you should really be using this CCMS platform to increase your enrollment. Because it's been the pandemic, a huge topic of conversation has been the sustainability grants. Like, are people applying for them? What are they spending them on? What have people heard about the audits? Like that whole, like, there's a little bit of fear, maybe a little bit of trepidation. They want to hear from each other. So if you look at our website, one of the values we tried to hit early on was a professional network, a collegial network that you will have the chance to get to know other providers. And I knew that was a value when I heard people saying that they had called so-and-so after one of the trainings to follow up on something she had said. We did a session on tax preparation and Ms. Darlene talked about her great accountant, and people, like 3 other providers called her to ask for her accountant's name and phone number, that kind of thing. Like that, it's I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but the isolation is real, and the chance to have like a faculty of people who are all living the same thing and struggling with the same problems should not be undersold. Okay, everybody's got candy. On to the next. I haven't noticed like a big sugar rush yet.
Next up, this is one that we kind of brought up a little bit earlier, but what's your best strategy to reach non-English speaking providers?
Go.
Anything exciting we've missed on that?
They're responding to this really cool. Someone wants to give someone a shout out. I was gonna wait for you.
Okay.
So for us, Spanish is or they can go to.
With the network specifically. So she's kind of.
As far as.
We have, so in our specific area, we have all shared services.
The Creole is where.
Focus on that. We're trying not to. No, there's not space for that. Also allowing you to. There, she's actually.
Especially with the parent. We do information sessions for parents as well as help the providers. And that was one of the big deals.
We also.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Volunteers? That's one. Anybody else? Oh, we have some online. Awesome. No virtual candy, but.
Okay, we have lunch.
Great.
For non-English speaking, we could say any other language that is not English.
That's exactly.
Normally speaking, you would have then Spanish speaking, sometimes Burmese or Zomi or Vietnamese or other Asian languages. But we think promotoras are very important in the community. These are usually women, people, but mostly women who are like they used to be called indigenous workers, but now they call them promotoras, women in the community who know everybody and they know Maria, and Maria can tell everybody where to go and what to do. She would be one. All other non-English speaking serving organizations, maybe healthcare, other different, but usually would be healthcare related. Non-English speaking organizations that actually do a lot of the immigration work. Facebook is also a big one. Radio is a big one. You just find that DJ that's popular, and if this person can get engaged, that would be one. And actually the ethnic supermarkets. Very good place to put messaging of some kind or events. And stores, you know, the I don't know, like the abarrotes, which are the Mexican related stores, or the Vietnamese markets, or where they sell specific culture specific stuff would be.
Awesome. Joanna, do you want to read the online stuff?
Yeah, similar to what you just shared, trusted messengers, peer-to-peer relationships, and having providers who have been part of the shared services provide testimonials.
Nice. Yes, testimonials are good. Our churches over here or in apartment complexes. Oh my God, that was not intentional.
I'm gonna be just dancing on the table.
I don't want to carry it home.
I think it's really easy to overlook, but one thing I want everyone to make sure that like is one takeaway is what Maria said is if you're reaching non-English speakers, not English is the way to reach non-English speakers. And it's to be intentional, to have conversations, to know the different places that they want to be reached, and doing it, not through a Google translation, trying to help and find somebody that can translate, a culturally appropriate way for whatever kind of regional dialects you might have. for the different languages that are being spoke.
And then when you do, being able to have documentation in their language as well.
Absolutely.
Where you can share that once that bridge is being met, right?
Absolutely.
So having that is an important thing too.
Yeah. One thing we had to do in Nebraska because no licensing like documentation is available from the state in Spanish. And so we know that we have a lot of Spanish speaking exclusive childcare providers. So what we did was we basically duplicated those documents. They can't submit them in Spanish, but they can mirror them and complete them in a way that now they can go and take the next step and have access to other resources and information.
Faith-based organizations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is not directly related to shared services, but it is perhaps speaks to sort of the symbiotic relationships in all of these projects and all of the work that we do. So I mentioned that we do a lot of advocacy work, and one thing that kept coming up in our trainings and coaching sessions and all of the work we were doing within this pilot was the challenges related to childcare subsidy. So first, just how few of the providers in the pilot actually participated in the subsidy program, how little they knew about it. We had somebody coming from the state and talk about it, but that really riled things up because what she described as to how it's supposed to work was not the lived experience of the women in the room. And it really led to us doing a significant amount of advocacy and holding some statewide town halls on childcare. We call it scholarship in Maryland, and we're about to publish a report about what we heard, what providers' experience with scholarship is. And I'll save you the cliffhanger. It's not good. And, you know, we had some legislation this year aimed at improving subsidy that's really, really exciting. It gets implemented well. So anyway, there's a lot to be learned, there's not a one-way street of information. And I'm sure that's obvious to you, but it has taken unexpected twists and turns that we didn't see coming in terms of the things that we heard, what we learned, ways that we were able to head off, you know, the rotten game of telephone. Like there were lots of rumors around what you could and couldn't do with sustainability grants. And we could see that some of the women were getting anxious about that because maybe some of them had already spent their money and now they were being told, oh, you're going to get in trouble for that. So like trying to head things off at the pass a little bit.
And one thing too, I just was thinking about related to having information or marketing materials specific to this breakout available. And let's just use Spanish as a easy example. Something to think about that it took a lot longer for me to really appreciate this than it should have. But thinking if you're going to be recruiting for a CDA class with Spanish materials, it would be really good of you to offer that class in Spanish. Otherwise, it kind of can feel like a real bait and switch, right? And it was truly like I admit myself, like it was an aha moment. I was like, well, duh, of course it doesn't feel right? But you know, you really just want to make sure that you're being very thorough. And sometimes too, you know, you can only offer what you can offer. And you know, something that we're planning to do moving forward is to have a disclosure in there that this class will be available in English if that's the case, and it's the only thing that we have capacity for. But just like I think just kind of a little, you know, footnote there to keep in mind as you're preparing to market or reach out to childcare providers.
Any other ideas people wanted to share that haven't been mentioned? Yeah.
I just wanted to add on to Tommy's point that I was just telling our group over here that's a huge piece to the culture of the organization or group, right? Or part of your shared services is knowing what your population looks like and how you should be delivering them. For example, I was letting the group know here that like 90% of the trainings or any type of professional development that we offer, we can't offer it since we do know that we have a very mixed population, but it is Spanish speaking and English. If we can't offer it at least those two languages, sometimes we don't offer it at all. So just to make sure that we're inclusive of everyone and making sure that everyone gets the same information, that might be a cultural kind of fitting, and that's a decision on a higher level to decide. And that's what you want to be known for, because then you start getting, oh, well, this is always offered in English, a business class, but never in Spanish.
Right.
And it can become a little.
Yeah, in all our canon, you guys are the absolute model for that equity perspective to make sure that if we can't do it for the people that we know are our audience, for both, languages or whatever other kind of places you're trying to reach providers, then it's not the right thing for us to do, right? So I really appreciate you are fantastic at that. Inspired a lot of our work in that direction.
Well, and I'll just add one thing, which was a learning for us. When we started, I told you we were unprepared. I'm not proud of that, but we were unprepared to serve the Spanish-speaking providers, and we had to scramble. So in the beginning, we were like, what can we do tonight? How can we deliver this in Spanish? So sometimes in the beginning, we just had Spanish-speaking trainers who took the material and delivered it. So we did like a breakout room. And then ultimately we signed a contract for simultaneous interpretation, but it had not occurred to me that was also, and I'm not saying this is universal, this will be everybody's own experience, but I got really negative feedback about don't put us in a different room with different trainers, because we want to hear it from who you consider to be the expert. And we want to hear it at the same time in the same delivery as everybody else. And there were very concrete examples of where they did get different, obviously not intentionally, but whether it was the translation or the vocabulary, but like something went slightly differently in those sessions. So that was a big learning of it's not just providing it in the language, it is the equity lens too, and making sure that everybody's getting what they need and access to the same resources, truly, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, but at the same time, so some communities cannot do that simply because the capacity is not there.
It's true.
So you do what you can and you are transparent, you give a disclosure and say, we can do it and we can do it in this way. It's the only way because we cannot find an expert. So it is also a give and take situation where you can still offer something that the people who are interested in hearing it can hear it. If you could do better, great, but if not, you just offer it. And if it happens, it happens. But it is true, sometimes there is that negative feedback. And sometimes it is because it's a lazy way of doing things. But if it's a thing that you have to do because you don't have another choice, there aren't a lot of early childhood education, educators and trainers. There aren't. So you have to actually train them either in how to train or study early childhood education so they can train. So it's either or at times. I know the community where I live, to find a bilingual, truly bilingual trainer on early childhood education, it's very difficult.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate your perspective, and please do not misunderstand. I was not presenting that as like a universal takeaway, but just some of the sensitivities around trying to do your best and being willing to learn and adapt your plan.
Yeah.
And yes, talking about doing it for Spanish is one thing, but then much lower incident languages, you might have to make a lot of alternative plans, B, C, D,
Well, with
and E,
some
right?
of our needs, we have been working with them and we don't have a lot of people who can do the translation or the capacity. So we do what we can, but we tell them, this is what we're able to do. And they are still loving it, but still, I think sometimes you just offer it knowing the limitation. It's easier to find a Spanish speaking than other Greek speaking. Or imagine the families coming from Afghanistan. It's a hell of a time.
Yeah. Well, the thing that both you and Tommy said is you just need to communicate about that on the front end, right? So whether it's your disclosure statement or explaining we're a work in progress, we've pulled all the resources, maybe asking if people have other ideas for how to get it done, but not ignoring the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Yeah.
2 questions online. So for the participant that shared that they only offer it if they offer it in both English and Spanish, what state is that?
Connecticut.
Connecticut, okay.
And New York.
And New
New
York.
York, Connecticut and New York. And then how is Maryland using translation, having a translator on site during training or translating the materials? What does this practice look like?
I mean, this practice looks like money I did not budget for to sign a contract with the translation and interpretation service. Because of the pandemic, we have been doing everything virtually. So we use Zoom channels for the translation, or sorry, for the interpretation. And we've just had to get better about preparing materials, adding, 5 days more to the timeline so they can get translated. I do not think we know how we're going to handle it if we go back to doing things in person. But to be honest with you, now that we've done it virtually, I actually wonder if it will work to do it in person, because we often have women calling in for these sessions, like almost you can see the last kid just walked out of their house, and they're sitting at a little tiny chair and a little tiny table, and sometimes they're eating dinner. I mean, it has actually occurred to me that maybe virtually it feels relationship-wise very undesirable, but maybe it's just unreasonable. I mean, we're serving 3 different counties. Maybe once a semester we could come together, or once a quarter, or maybe we could have them come together in their county, but driving around the state, like when I see like how hard it is for people to show up online after an incredibly long day and all of the worries of the pandemic piled on top of it, and they have their own families, I think maybe we're just going to stay virtual. But anyway, to be determined.
You have a question about.
I was gonna comment to that. We're a brand new baby network. We're only 22 months old. And one of the things that I tried really hard to do is hear them and ask them. So we've been doing virtual trainings, professional development. We're very blessed in Arkansas to have all of our professional development is free to all of our providers. It doesn't cost them anything. And so during the shutdown, we took 32 courses at the university and moved them all to virtual.
Wow.
So that they could receive that. ASU did the same thing that U of A did, and we all worked diligently to do that. So one of the things the providers have said to me, please don't take away our virtual learning. So I started looking at transcripts from the professional development registry. And had providers that got 15 hours or less prior to COVID because they couldn't get to the trainings, or they had one trainer in their area that only taught one course, and they took the same course for 4 years in a row and got the same exact information.
Yeah.
Because so to see their transcripts now, how robust they are and how they're now implementing things into their homes. It's incredible to me. And so we've just committed to, you will always have the opportunity for virtual learning through the Family Child Care Network, so that you can get what you need to meet your licensing requirements, your professional development requirement for yourself. And then now we have Teach in Arkansas. So all of those Teach opportunities are all online. So I don't think we'll ever go back to face-to-face only in our world, because I've got one provider that's in Horatio, Arkansas, and that is 4 hours away from anybody. You got to be going there to get there. And so, and she's the only one in her county that's licensed. So she has nobody to drive to collaborate with.
Yeah.
So that for us has really proved, and we do everything we can to build. But relationship building is first. I do a lot of handwritten notes. That's how I brought them in the beginning, sending them little things in the mail, and they just so hungry for relationship that they show up, and they're there every month on our meetings, and it's exciting.
Well, I think I agree. I hope we never totally go back and think of it as both and instead of either or, but also the reality is to do what opportunities exchanges doing is sticking her up and saying, okay, we'll just live stream it, like it's way more expensive. So we're confronting that right now of like, this is like a whole new line of planning to make it worthwhile and to not have the virtual experience be really subpar. So that's a different conference. Okay. Next question.
Awesome.
All right. So this one goes again to
to a conversation we kind of started earlier, but what systems could you mine from or piggyback off of to support your marketing effort? Who could you collaborate with, make connections with, that sort of thing?
All right, we're in the home stretch here, people. There's only like 5 minutes left before happy hour. So you got 60 seconds on the clock. Go.
Yeah, for us, eventually. We might sign up here. Funny. So
Yeah.
If anything, it's kind of.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Answers? Anybody want to volunteer? There could be candy in it for you. Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
Say coalitions, early childhood coalitions. They're always looking for guest speakers. And I think providers trust their coalitions, or at least they trust other providers that are at the coalition. So I think it could be a good way. And a lot of coalitions are online or, offer a Zoom opportunity as well. So you might be able to get to a lot of providers, even ones that can't make it to the meeting.
Our coalition is very big on community engagement. A lot of the business partners, whether it's funders or that engagement with local businesses. But what we found is a lot of them, their resources are more applicable or accessible to centers versus family child home, and that's the challenge, that where you want to create that inclusiveness and equity of resources. So it's just been a focus on more intentionally finding those resources for family child care homes.
Lots of head shaking. Other answers? Yeah.
I have a new one that was just new to us that I got really excited about, was our patent clearance and the training that they get. Our United Way got us connected with patent programs, and them energy is ready to go. So our Pat and getting home instructional.
Parents as teachers is Pat.
Home.
Home instruction for parents. There you go. Yeah. Other ideas?
We partner with our other contractors in the state. And so when they've got things going on or we've got things going on, we work together to share information across all areas.
Yeah, so obviously we relied on the CCRCs. They have their own newsletters, their own social media, their own mailing list. So we sent it out, we gave it to them, they sent it out. The state in Maryland State Department of Education has a weekly newsletter they send out. So we put stuff in their newsletter through the Division of Early Childhood. I've heard people talk about striking up partnerships with licensing. So like when somebody walks in the door to talk about what does it take to get licensed, they get handed, like a flyer or a card or sort of a referral of some sort to direct them to that website or to whatever, whatever the source of information is going to be for you. Do you have other thoughts?
Yeah, we've partnered with like licensing, food program sponsors. Really, this one's, there's no wrong answers. Really, I think the main takeaway is like, don't go it alone if you don't have to. Leverage other people's relationships and trust that they've built. and it just is a tremendous head start for you. You can get buy-in from others, and it can kind of diffuse out to the childcare providers that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, so I just thought of two more. We have state associations, one for centers, one for family childcare. And then they often have local chapters in various counties. And then in Maryland, some family childcare providers are part of the SCIU. So that's another way to reach. Again, none of those reach everyone, but they will reach some critical mass. We are down to the absolute wire. Is there anything people are dying to ask or say that you haven't had a chance to?
I know we just kind of dipped a toe in really to kind of the theme of the breakout. So I think we've got business cards up here too, if anyone wants to connect afterwards, and we can do it when it's not 4 or 5 o'clock.
I have a question, being sort of new to the space, and that is, so you both talked about your individual marketing efforts. So are there places where different shared services providers from around the country are sharing their marketing? So as a sort of shared sort of, what have we used?
Well, funny you should ask. It's time for our promo for opportunities. I'm not paid to say this, but I mean, a lot of how I know about what other places are doing is that Maryland was part of a community of practice that OpEx ran of all the places that were working both on shared services and specifically working with Wonder School, because we were all like trying to figure out the same set of things. So that's how I first met Tommy and his organization, and probably truly how we got paired to do this workshop today. So that was really useful. And they were setting up, Google Drive files where people were dumping. So it was like, everybody who had an application for their cohort, stick it in there, or here's the website address, or here's, anyway, just all the things. So
ours has been mostly theft-based. If we see something that looks really good, just taking it and running with it, yeah.
Well, they give a plug into CCA for social good.
Absolutely, that too.
And I mean, instrumental, and their monthly calls, and they gather representative from all over the nation and talk about, best practices, and we have a theme or a state that presents each month and what they're doing and what's working and so forth. So plug in for them that they've been instrumental for our state board.
Awesome.
I have just one more thing, because they keep asking. I'm supposed to say hi to Jody Wall from your friends in Washington. Just wanted to make sure I said that. They keep
apparently come with a fan club. All right, well, you guys, last session of the day. Thank you so much for being engaged and delightful.